There's the snap, there's the knee. That's one. You stand up, Jared. Put those arms in the air. Put those arms in the air, 16.
All right. How about now? Can you guys hear me okay now? I'm back now. Should be good. Good? You guys good, Ryan? All right. It only takes 4 tries, right? 4 live streams for something to really screw up today. All right, let me start over. So welcome to Tuesday night off the cuff, Rock Down Detroit Lions. And tonight, like I said, I wanted to go over some of the top 5 prospects and kind of get into the list that I put together because Brad Holmes screwed me up today. And he screwed me up because it seems like nothing is off the list for him in this draft. It seems like nothing is off the table. And I say that because it's almost like, he said a lot today, but he said nothing, like always. But it's almost like he's not worried about getting anything in free agency. And if that's the case, if he's really not going to go big in free agency at all, even in cornerback, then that means that this draft is going to be full of, it's best player available, but it's going to be full of who's available at the pick that we're at. We don't have enough draft capital to move up, or move back and make things make sense. It's not like the last 2 seasons. So, King SJ, am I good? I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. I'm going to check my computer real quick. I'll be right back. All right. Should be good. I had a loose connection earlier. I think we're all good. I think we're fixed. I'm going to have to edit the crap out of this one now. All right. So anyway, tonight, let's go over this top 5 prospect list and kind of how it matches up to the Lions. I have Bucky Brooks' top 5 that I was looking at, and then I've got my own. So something that, like you're saying, see, you think he's got something cooking. Yeah, Brad's doing something. Don't know what, but he's doing something. You heard him today. He wants to keep as many of his own guys as possible, and he's willing to overpay to keep them. Apparently, with signing, Mabe into the contract that he received. I hope that that's not the case when we get to, Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei Sewell and all of those, bigger deals that need to get done. I'm hoping that they're going to be a little bit more cap conscious. So anyway, let me go over this. Let me go over Tribe. Josh Reynolds washing his hands with peanut butter. I don't even know what that means. Let me go over this 2003 roster to the 2024 roster. Okay. So I went over last year's 53 man and kind of looking at what makes sense. Where are we at? Like, how bad is it, compared to where we were last season? And in 2023, we had 2 quarterbacks, Jared Goff, Teddy Bridgewater, and Hendon Hooker on NFI. Now, we didn't pick up Teddy till later in the season, but, be that as it may, this season, we're starting off with Jared Goff and Hendon Hooker. So they're healthy. They're good to go. You heard Dan Campbell say he doesn't know what he has in Hendon yet. I'm not expecting Hendon to do anything, at all right now. I mean, obviously he's a backup. He's not going to be taken over for Jared Goff. And before I go any further, there, Bujo, thank you so much for the super chat, the $2 donation. I hope you heard your sound. Let me play another one just in case you didn't.
Oh my Detroit, stand up. You've waited for this. One proud nation, stand up. You've waited for this.
All right, appreciate it. And your new name, super appreciate you joining us tonight. So here's what I'm looking at. I do expect him to do something with the quarterbacks only because we're going to have to bring in some camp bodies. I do not expect it in the draft. I really don't. But when I started going through the top needs and best player available, guess what position is going to be highly available potentially at pick 29? Quarterback. Would you pass on Bo Nix? I mean, when you look at his grades and you watch his tape, guy's incredible. I don't know that. I mean, I think he's only 6'2". I mean, so he's right there. Obviously the combine is going to tell us a little bit more, about his height, size, weight, all that good stuff. Would you pass on a quarterback like that, knowing that you have Hendon Hooker sitting and Jared Goff, who may not be wrapped up yet, may not have an extension yet. So that kind of worries me, Bujo, or is it Bujo? I hope I'm saying it right. Kind of worries me that if he really is going to go best player available, there could be a couple of quarterbacks there, because the way this draft is lining up, there could be 7 receivers taken in the first round. This might be the first draft that we don't have like 6 or 7 offensive linemen taken in the first round. And I'll have to go back and look at previous drafts, but I want to say that last year we had 4 quarterbacks and at least 5 or 6 offensive linemen go in the first round. And a lot of that was like in the top 19, 20 picks, somewhere in that range. Of course, you had Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell. And then you had a rash of some defensive linemen in there, towards the end. But this is a very, very, very different draft. Very, very different. And it seems like it's full of juniors, not as many seniors. So anyway, quarterbacks, you got Jared Goff, Hendon Hooker. Running backs, you got David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jason Kabinda last season. This season, we're starting off with David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs. Jamar Jefferson is on a reserve futures, but let's just say they keep Jamar Jefferson. Now, again, I see them adding a couple of camp bodies. They're going to do it between UDFA and free agents and everything else. And you also have Zonovan Knight. I'm not real sure of his, status right now, but let's just say they call it good there. So quarterback's good, running back's good, outside of camp bodies, nothing to worry about, right? Well, then you get into the receivers. And this one kind of worries me because you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown as your number 1. And then they were talking about Jamison Williams developing into the number 2. A true starting, wide receiver is what came out of Dan Campbell today. And if that's the case, he's not going to take over Amon-Ra snaps. So he's our number 2. So you got 1 is Amon-Ra, 2 is Jamison Williams. Your 1B is going to be Khalif Raymond. And your 2B right now is Antoine Green. So you got 4 receivers. You brought in Traquan Smith and Tom Kennedy, which are the 2 best out of the bunch that are, sitting in reserve futures right now. That rounds out our wide receiver tree, our wide receiver room. I don't know enough about Traquan Smith other than what I reported about a month ago when we picked him up. I don't see him being, super exciting. But he is, somebody that does have the potential to be something. Whether he gets 1,000 yards and, 60 balls, no, I don't think that's going to happen. But I don't see the bottom of this roster shaping up to be something that is very potent compared to what we had this last season. Believe it or not, Josh Reynolds is a very big part of this offense. Just like DJ Chark was the season before, it just didn't seem like it. But you go back and look at Josh Reynolds, and when he, caught, or when he was involved and caught the passes that he did, You're talking first downs all the time, 17-yard passes. The majority of the time, it seemed like it was over 17 yards. A lot of explosive plays to Josh Reynolds. When we needed something, Josh Reynolds was there to produce it. Now, I get it. He had 4 drops on the whole season, and you could probably count 2 of them in the NFC Championship game, but 4 drops the whole season. That's it. And for that, I'm cool with Josh Reynolds, and I would love to see him come back to continue on with the chemistry of the team. Big shout out to Better the Hunt. He says, Brad has a past full of surprises. Bet he has some serious stuff in his bag of tricks this spring. I just got the feeling. And shout out to you, Better the Hunt, for the $10 super donation. I really appreciate it, my man. And these things are on autoplay. It'll kick in. If you guys don't hear it, I'll play one for you. So to follow that up, what do you think is in his bag of tricks? Donovan Amos, no, he only had 4, according to PFF and Pro Football Reference. He only had 4. And I know there's a couple of people in here that are really hard up on Reynolds coming back to the team, but I'm kind of partial to the guy with, the ability that he has in communication with Goff is, you can't trade that for anything. John Goodwin says Green
takes the snap, gives to Gibbs bounces through a hole. There it goes outside 20. Gibbs 15, Gibbs 10, angling to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Oh, baby, what a run.
Man, I can see that run right now, too. I can see it. So John Goodwin says Green and Jones 2024 stats will be the same as 2023 stats. Interesting. We do need a wide receiver to stretch the field. We do. And I'm hoping that DPJ sticks around and that he turns into the DPJ from, 2022 and gets 800 yards, boundary guy, somebody that can stretch the field. He doesn't have blazing speed, but he's fast enough. We got JMO that's supposed to be our blazer. And let me recap on speed real quick, because they did mention something about Jahmyr Gibbs today, which I was high on, and I was talking about earlier in the season when Gibbs was having a little bit of trouble and he just wasn't popping. We were waiting for him to pop. We were waiting for him to get that game, to finally welcome to the NFL. You did it. And I kept mentioning he was too quick. He didn't let the play develop in front of him. His vision, his patience, whatever you want to call it. Well, Dan Campbell mentioned both of those today. Brad Holmes mentioned both of those today, that it just took a minute for Gibbs to really slow down internally and allow the play to develop. He was too quick. And that's the same thing that we see with JMO. It's not a quarterback issue. It's the timing issue, just being in the right place at the right time. It's all timing. And it doesn't matter how fast you are. Like, you'll see some guys in the league that run 4.45, 4.59, 4.5, and they might be some of the best wide receivers in the game. And it's because it's not so much the speed that matters. It matters, are you getting to your dot on time? Are you running the right route? That's what matters more than anything. You can be a little bit slower as long as you're doing the right things in the process. Yes, and JMO's making big strides. I think he's going to have a much better season. So to continue on with the wide receivers, here's what I've got. I have needs. Draft. I do not have free agent here. I have draft. I don't think that there's a way that you extend Amon-Ra St. Brown and then dip into the free agency pool unless it's your own, unless it's Josh Reynolds. And when I say free agency right now, that means your own guy. Okay. So I have draft somewhere in the 3rd round that we can get a receiver. Again, let's just say everything is equal. Everything stays the same. The combine doesn't change a thing. Let's just say that. I know it's not possible, but let's just say that. You're going to have Brendan Rice. You're going to have Leggett, who I really like. And you're going to have a handful of other guys in that 3rd round that are going to be field stretchers, that are going to be boundary guys, 50-50 guys that have decent speed, but it's more the 6'2", 6'3" kind of body type that I'm looking for. I don't know what Brad's looking for, but that's what I'm looking for. We need a taller receiver. We've gone too many seasons being one of the shortest wide receiver crews in the league. In 2021, we averaged 5 foot 11 and a half inches. In 2022, we averaged just barely 6 foot. And in 2023, I think we are 6 foot and a half. So we've been incrementally getting better, but that's a pretty short wide receiver room when you compare it to the league. Big frames, says John Goodwin. Big frames. I love it. Demigod 313 says JMO is ready. Lions just have to look at how San Francisco's using Debo, and we will be all right. It's funny you say that because I always thought that he would be a good Debo-esque type player, but not so much Debo because Debo is so much bigger and not as frail as Jameson. Jameson's pretty skinny. You put him in as a Debo, he's going to get wrecked. But I do like some of the trick plays, the routes, the end arounds. I do like that. So wide receiver, we made it to our third positional group. We got through quarterback, running back, wide receiver. At this point, I'm okay with us drafting one in the third round. And let's just hope that Antoine Green steps up. Jameson Williams takes off. Amon-Ra does Amon-Ra things. Khalif Raymond comes back healthy. You know, he may only put up 350, 450 in yards on the season, but he is highly valuable in the punt and kick return game. And he is a first down monster when he needs to be. They kind of forget about Khalif at times on the field. And as small as he is, man, he really gets it done. I never thought he was that short. On TV, you see one thing. In practice, it's totally different. So third round, I'm expecting the Lions to grab a wide receiver. So let's go and look at Bucky Brooks real quick. We'll take a look at his receiver top 5. And in his top 5, he has Marvin Harrison, Romy Odunze, Malik Neighbors, Keon Coleman, and Brian Thomas Jr. And that's great because the Lions will not have a shot at any one of them unless they have a terrible combine. And that means that the Lions would have to take one at 29 if they were to have a shot at any of those guys. And what I'm looking at is these guys. I'm looking at an Xavier Worthy, Longhorn, Texas. And this guy's got some speed, hell of a ball player, but he's only 6'1", 172. Needs to bulk up a little bit. He'll be available in the third round as of right now. Another guy, no, I would stay away from Johnny Wilson if you guys ask. That's just me. I think he's just a little too clunky. Even though he does run pretty well for as tall as he is, he's just a little clunky. But at pick 73, more like 61. So it'd have to be, second round, late second round. Xavier Legette. I have a feeling that he's going to jump up into the second round. So even though I want a wide receiver in the third, it might have to be the second if you want somebody like a Legette that can truly stretch the field. 6'3", 227 pounds. He is the closest body that I've seen to a Calvin Johnson type size in a very long time. He's just not as tall, but he's got that wide body, thick frame, long arms, and he can run. 50% of the balls almost are contested. He put up 1,255 yards in 2023. He averaged 17.7 yards a catch, 7 TDs on the season. He was targeted 97 times, caught 71 balls. I mean, that's like 70-some%. So I like what this guy brings to the table. He only had 2 drops the entire season. He's everywhere. He's in the slot. He's catching screen balls, deep passes, you name it. The guy can line up and do it all. So I do like this guy. I just have a feeling he's going to move up pretty quickly in the draft. Next after that, you got Brendan Rice. You guys already know how I feel about him. I did a video on him. The guy is, he's going to surprise a lot of people. He doesn't get as many contested catches. But that's because he's burning the competition. He's getting beyond them. He's getting behind them. But this is another 6'3" guy, 210 pounds, field stretcher, somebody that's going to work nicely in the red zone. And I think he's a great option. Right now he's at 76. So you'd be lucky to get him at 73. Again, might have to be a second rounder. But when I say I want him in the third, the way that we're going to have to get there is I'm expecting that we're either going to back off a 29 or we're going to back off a 61, gain a couple of picks, package maybe a pick from 2025 and move back up into the third round, move back up into the second round. One of those two things I'm expecting Brad Holmes to do this season in this draft. He's going to have to move back up. He's going to have to get the guys that he wants, and he's going to have to get out just like he did last year. You guys' chats are flying, man. I can't even keep up. Braylon Dennis, what's happening, man? He says, I want us to focus on defense first in the draft, please. I would love to. But right now, we're at wide receiver. Third round is what I'm looking at. I think there's going to be some good options. But if we really want one of these dogs like Xavier or Brendan Rice, I think it's going to end up happening in the second round, late second round. All right, let's move on to tight end. So tight end right now, we have Sam Laporta and James Mitchell. That's it. James hasn't turned out to be much. Sam, darn near all-pro his first season. Last season, we had 3 to start the season. We had Brock Wright, Sam Laporta, James Mitchell. So we're down 1. We need to add 1 to this team. Shane Zielstra took a nasty injury, and Brock Wright took an injury towards the end of the season. So both of those guys have to fight back to make it back on this team. Brock Wright's getting a little bit older. I do like Brock because he knows this offense well. He's always been somebody that Jared Goff can trust. I don't know if he wants to move on to another team, if he's even really going to get much more opportunity to catch more balls. I doubt it. But he's someone that has always been able to be counted on by Jared Goff. And I'll never forget that one long pass last season or the season before. It was like 45-yard TD or whatever towards the end of the game. I can't remember what game it was now, but Dan Miller's call was exceptional. So this one, I am 50-50 on, okay? I have 50% of me draft, 50% of me free agent. But in place of free agency out in the open market, it's to bring back Brock Wright. And if we were to do that, let's take a look at something right here. I want to say Brock Wright made minimum money, like less than $1 million a season or something like that. But right now, his market value is $4.5 million per season. 3 years, $13.5 million. I don't know why I thought he was 29. The guy's 25 years old. So he's looking for a big payday. I don't think that that's going to happen. Ertz, yep. I mean, you got Ertz in the tail end of the season. I mean, he's obviously not listed, anywhere as a free agent of the Lions or anything right now. He's a little bit older. He could sign with the Lions, but then again, I think he's looking to latch on, win a ring towards the end of the season like he did this last year. I think that's why he kind of waited, to see who was going to compete after he asked for his release. So I do like Ertz. I really do. And hey, we got a pretty good look at him for a few days. I just don't see the Lions, and I have free agent $4 million per year. I just don't see the Lions paying Brock Wright 3 years, $13.5 million. I just don't. But then again, I didn't see him paying Maben, darn near $4 million a year either. So at this point, I'm going draft, and you guys know who I like because this is an opportunity for the Lions to grab a tight end in the 4th round. And again, that's only if what's happening right now with the mocks and how everything's kind of lining up stays the same. If Theo Johnson is there in the 4th round, you cannot walk away from him. Even if you've signed Brock Wright, I don't think that you can walk away from him. I really don't. So when I look at Bucky Brooks, top 5 tight ends, you've got Brock Bowers. That one blows me away that he's going to be a top 10 pick potentially. Jatavion Sanders, Cade Stover, Theo Johnson, number 4, and AJ Barner, Michigan, senior. So that's interesting to me that Jatavian Sanders is number 2. I think that Theo Johnson is going to fly up the board this weekend. I really do. And if he does, right now, Jatavian, or I totally just butchered the guy's name. Sanders is where? Right now, Sanders is ranked early to mid second round. I do not see the Lions wasting a second round pick on a tight end. I really don't. So at this point, I think it's you wait until the 4th round. And if Theo Johnson is right now the 4th best tight end in the league or coming into the league, and he's available in the 3rd or the 4th round, I mean, then you kind of answer, I guess a couple of problems. One, you've got another receiving tight end, another tight end that can be a threat downfield, and could potentially be, like a possession tight end. He's a receiver. And maybe you don't have to draft, a Brendan Rice or somebody else, but I would much opt to go for the wide receiver over the tight end in that case. So where does this put us? Well, if we spend a 3rd round pick on a wide receiver, or maybe it's a 2nd round pick because, the guys that I would want anyway are going to be available in the 2nd round, pick 73 potentially. Pick 73 potentially, I think, you might be able to get Leggett or Rice. Maybe 61 is probably more like it. So that means that you've now spent a 3rd round and a 4th round pick on 2 offensive players to start this draft. And you're not even to the offensive line yet. So the reason why I'm going through all of this, because, I'm trying to figure out what's going to happen in free agency. So let's move on to offensive line. Let me look at the chat for a second first. Braylon Dennis. I'm not going to read that one. Be nice, buddy. Donovan Amos. Who are you guys talking about? What did I miss? Who are you guys arguing about? Edrin Cooper at 29, the linebacker. Derek, you were in here last night talking about Edrin Cooper, the linebacker at 29. Look, I'm not afraid of taking a linebacker at 29. I know Brad Holmes isn't. He'll take him at 18. It's got to be a special player, and it's got to be somebody that can rush the quarterback. So can Edrin Cooper rush the quarterback? That's going to be the biggest question. And when we get to the defensive side of the ball, we'll throw Edrin Cooper into the mix a little bit and see where he ends up. Reynolds. So Josh Reynolds, look, man, I'm telling you, he's not as bad as what you think he is. You guys are just sore because we lost the NFC title game. Look at the big picture. Jared Goff defended him for a reason, because that's, it's an unfortunate way that the season ended, but Reynolds has been one of the most consistent players, in my opinion. So, all right. And we're all entitled to our opinions. I mean, you guys, you're entitled to your opinions. Obviously, you talk about it in the chat. I don't see half of what goes on in the chat. Only thing I expect is that people just treat each other with some respect. That's all. All right. So offensive line, Taylor Decker is getting, on the edge of his career at this point. So we also need a backup. But right now, your left tackle is Taylor Decker. We do not have a backup. Left guard, Jonah Jackson is a free agent. Coyote Abel-Sika is his backup, and that scares the hell out of me. Frank Ragnow. We know that Frank is at the very end of his career because of injury, not because he doesn't have the talent, not because he can't do it, but the injuries to his legs are just becoming, and his feet are just becoming too much to overcome. So Frank Ragnow, center, we need a backup. We need someone that can come in and take over for Ragnow if he gets hurt, and especially when he retires. Excuse me. And so when I look at the options here, you've got one clear option, which is you bring back Graham Glasgow. That is probably the one that makes the most sense, where you're going to have two options, with a center / guard that can come in, Graham Glasgow being that guy that can fill in at right or left guard and be ready to take over center whenever he's needed. It makes perfect sense. He did it last season. Goff is comfortable with him. You've got to pay the man. He has to be a number one free agent target. And if he's anywhere close to, $5 million a year, $6 million a year, you better pay the guy, especially if you're paying Maben $4 million. So expect Glasgow to come back. I mean, it has to happen. But then you go to right guard. And I mean, obviously Vitai's gone, or will be gone. Colby Sorsdahl is our backup right now. And he did not play very well last year. So this scares the hell out of me. When you look at what the Lions started with last year, and then of course you got Sewell at right tackle with no backup. When you look at the offensive line last year, we had 8. Excuse me. We had 8 guys: Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, Vaitai, Penei Sewell, Graham Glasgow, Colby Sorsdahl, Matt Nelson. Have no idea what's going on with Matt Nelson right now, because he should have came back towards the end of the season, especially when we needed the depth and the help on the line. So why didn't he come back? It doesn't make any sense to me. At this point, then I'm not so confident that he is going to come back. So we had 8 offensive linemen. So our needs right now are Graham Glasgow, who can occupy 2 spots. Love the versatility. And you pay him 2 years, $12 million all day long. If that's what he's looking for, that's what you pay him. And you bring him in, you solidify 2 options on the offense as needed, but he definitely would have a starting position at right or left guard. So that means you have to bring in a center in the draft. Or both a tackle guard in the draft. So this is where I probably did the most work today, is looking at the offensive line, because when you look at the offensive line needs, here's my top 5. And this is kind of how it works out. If you were to take an offensive lineman at pick 21, let me get Bucky Brooks up too. 1 second. So if you were to, here's Bucky Brooks' offensive tackles would be Joe Alt. He'll be a top 10. Fashanu, he'll probably be a top 15. Or Fuaga, he'll be a top 15. And then Amarius Mims, and then J.C. Latham. That's Bucky Brooks' top 5 offensive tackles. Interior blockers, he has Graham Barton, Jackson Powers Johnson, Cooper Beebe, Christian Haynes, and Zach Zinter. And I'm going to tell you the funny things about some of these guys, and I don't understand how they're ranked in the top 5 for Bucky Brooks. But let's talk about Zach Frazier, because he immediately pops up at 29. West Virginia, 6'3", 310 pounds. And we're talking guard. And the reason why we're talking guard is because he doesn't have, he's a center, but we're talking guard because, one, he doesn't have any guard experience, which sucks. But he has short arms, 32 inches, which kind of fits the profile of a center. But I think that those are still a little bit too short to play center, in my opinion. I would not take him with my first pick at 29. I would stay as far away from it as possible. And so with that, there's not going to be anybody else available that makes sense. You're going to way overreach, which Brad Holmes would do, for an offensive lineman at 29. Joe Alt's gone. Fuaga's gone. More than likely, Fashanu is gone. So the next guy that you would look at, on the interior side of the ball would be Graham Barton. And Graham Barton, hold on a sec. Let me bring his info back up. Graham Barton has pretty short arms too, 32 and 5/8 inch. So, I mean, it's close to be playing, guard. You really don't want arms less than 33 inches as a guard, 34 inches as a tackle. So just from an arm length standpoint, I would already rule him out and put him on the back burner if I could find somebody better or equal to him in a later round, which I feel like I did. So I don't see the Lions taking anybody in the first round, potentially in the second round. They might, but I think the Lions are going to be able to find a couple of really good options in the third round. But this third round is really starting to get crowded for the Lions, like really crowded. My question to you guys would be, have you looked at any offensive linemen right now that make any sort of sense for the Lions offensive line in 2024 based on the needs analysis and guys that can step in and play right now? Or are we going to have to dip into free agency and probably grossly overpay Jonah Jackson? So here's where I'm at. And I don't believe Jonah wasn't selected by Brad Holmes. So the difference here with Jonah is I think he gets a pass not being a Brad Holmes selection. And that's how he could stay because he's been with the system for 3 seasons while Brad Holmes has been there. So he knows him. He knows him well. Like you said today, you don't know what you don't know. So round 3, pick 73. The Lions should be able to trade back, add some capital. But if they could trade back to stay, at like pick 83, 84, they could pick up a guard by the name of Mason McCormick, South Dakota State, 6'5", 315 pounds. No, Donovan, we cannot pay Jonah $15 million a year. He's not worth it, in my opinion. 33 and 6/8. I don't know why they put 6/8 down. Is that not 3/4 in America? It's 3/4, right? Why would they put 6/8 down? So 6'5", 315, left guard, 33 and 3/4 inch arms, really solid grades in the run department, 90.8, in the zone blocking scheme, which you guys know the Lions use a ton of, 94.7. Pass blocking grade is pretty darn good too at 85.4. So round 3, move back just a couple of picks just to add something to the kitty. I don't care if it's a 5th round pick, add something, add some draft capital, move back, grab guard Mason McCormick. And then, you move back. Let's say you've got pick 70. Let's say you got pick 84. And your next pick is 92, right? You've added, let's say, a 4th round, a late 4th round, or early 5th round pick by moving back. Well, at pick 92, you can now come right back and shore up this offensive line by taking Matt Goncalves or Cooper Beebe. Right now, they'll be there. After the draft or after the combine, not so sure. So Matt Goncalves is my second option at pick 73, or at least somewhere in the 3rd round. Pittsburgh, he's 6'6", 330 pounds. He can play left or right tackle. Little bit lower grades. I think I'm going to attribute that to the rest of the offensive line that he had to play with wasn't that great. And when the chink in the armor kind of, gets bent up and beat up and bruised, and the rest of it just starts to break along with it, right? So he may be a later pickup in the draft, but he has the measurables. And that's what I'm looking for. And then this weekend, we'll look and see, where he grades out at, with the rest of it. But right now, I'm thinking that the Lions can shore up this offensive line between the 3rd and the 4th round. And that's what I'm hoping that they're going to do. But let's move a little bit further. At pick 92, I think the Lions can trade back to pick 105. Again, let's add a 5th, a 6th round pick, something, move back a few spots, and pick up guard Cooper Beebe. Now, the biggest knock on him is that he has shorter arms. He's 6'4", 335. Now, when I go back and look at all of these guards and tackles, almost every single one of them has shorter arms. So you're going to have to do something. You just got to take the best of the worst, right? So 6'4", 335. He's a guard with tackle experience, which I love because that way he can fill in. If something happened to Panay or Taylor Decker, he could fill in. or, maybe there's somebody else like Graham Glasgow that could fill in, whoever would be better at that point. But very solid stats, 90.45 in pass blocking, 81.2 in zone, 79.9 in run blocking, but in a true passing set, 91.1. So again, I think that the middle of this draft between pick 73 and 105 is going to be the meat of the draft for offensive linemen for the Detroit Lions. And look, I'm not afraid of mid-tier offensive linemen at all. We see time and time again, a lot of these later round guys turn out to be great. The last guy that I had on my list, tackle Dominic Pooney. Now, the other day I said that I wasn't as high on him as I was earlier in the month. But Kansas, 320 pounds. I believe he's 6'5" or 6'6". For some reason, I didn't write it down. I found his arm length at 33 3/4 inches. So just a hair short to be a tackle, right? But then he came back with 10-inch hands. Now, we'll see what happens this weekend in his measuring. But 10-inch hands is about a half of an inch longer than the average. So he actually will have 34-inch arms with the use of his hands. He can play left guard or left tackle. 90.4 pass block, 86.7 true pass set, 72.3 run block. So those are my picks. I would stay, pretty far away from taking anybody at pick 29. I would look to settle up the offensive line between, in round 3, quite honestly. As early as pick 61, I don't think that I would do that. I think that if I were the Lions, I would trade off of 61 if they were going to take any sort of an offensive lineman. Unless somebody really slipped, I would be trading off of 61 to, stay in the second round, gain some more draft capital, and then target these guys, in the middle of the draft, and then settle up, grabbing rookie or Aurora or Dwayne Carter or somebody, which we'll get to next. So, all right, defensive line, but let me get into the chat. Mike P says, are you not bringing DPJ? If so, why? 6'2", 204 with soft hands. No, I like DPJ. Love him. Love what he brings to this team. I do believe that he needs an off season with this team to be successful with this team. And I do believe that the Lions are going to give him an opportunity to stay. It's just, he's got to say yes, to sign on the dotted line. Demigod 313 says yes, something is telling me the Lions are going to wait till the third round to start moving back in order to get picks in the fourth round. That's what I'm thinking too. I don't think that Brad Holmes is going to try to walk out of this draft not having a fourth round pick. He does so much better in the third, fourth, fifth round than anywhere else in the draft, in my opinion. I mean, he's hit pretty well in the first round, but it's kind of hard not to. A true GM's talent is shown in the middle to late rounds of the draft. That's where Brad Holmes does his best work. So, talking about Zach Zinter, he will not go past the middle of the third round. So Zach Zinter had that nasty broken leg or something like that, I believe. And who was the center that filled in or took Zinter's spot for Michigan? What's his name? Nelson? I can't remember now. I'll look it up real quick. Nugent, not Nelson, Nugent. So when I look at Zach Zinter, right now he's ranked 152, which is, late fifth round pick, or somewhere around there, fifth round. He's 6'6", 322, and his grades are okay. He's in the low 70s for everything. Primarily plays right guard. And I thought that he was more of a center, but primarily plays right guard. And Bucky Brooks has him right now as the 5th ranking on his list. See, and I don't. I mean, you just heard the guys that I had as far as guards go. I have Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, Matt Goncalves, Cooper Beebe, and Dominic Pooney as my top 5 interior offensive linemen, that 2 of them also play tackle, or they are tackles and they would be able to convert to guard. So like Pooney plays left guard or left tackle. Goncalves plays left or right tackle, but given the fact that his measurables might be just a little bit on edge, he might be best suited as a guard. And we see that quite often. Tackles in college play guard in the pros. And then with their size, I don't want to see, offensive linemen under 6'4". I really don't. And I don't think that Brad Holmes wants to either, to be honest with you. So Bucky Brooks, well-respected individual. I just feel like these guys fit the measurables. Now we'll see what the combine says. Demigod 313 says, which is why I'm wondering how valuable that 29th pick is to other 31 teams. He could very well get another second round and a fourth round. He could. So there's an exercise that we'll do. I won't do it tonight, but I don't know if you've ever costed out, the pick's value, but there's a couple of websites where you can plug in, the pick. If memory serves me right, that pick is probably worth about, 800 points maybe. So you can figure out, what a mid-second and a mid-fourth might be worth, add them together. And if you get close to 800 points, it's probably worth the trade. But then that begs the question, are you okay with Brad Holmes backing out of the first round completely and not having a fifth-year option on one of his players from this draft? That's going to be the cost, is you're going to lose a potential year. So it's a big decision. I do not believe that it makes any sense to move up to grab Jackson Powers Johnson. I do believe it would make great sense to move up to grab Joe Alt. The guy's like 6'8", 340 or something crazy out of Notre Dame, and love the guy, love his ability. Very rare talent, but you're going to have to move up into the top 10, which means you're going to be giving up next year's probably first round pick to do it. And I just don't think that it's worth it. And then who are you going to replace? Taylor Decker? At some point you would. You'd probably have to put Alt at guard for the moment, and I don't think he's going to be happy there. So let's move on to the defense. How are we doing so far? Is everything making sense? A lot of work goes into this stuff, man. A lot of work. All right, so we've gotten through the offensive line. Let's move on to the defense. So here's my top, 7, even though I called it top 5. Defensive ends. And you guys are probably not going to agree, and that's okay. And this is until I get to see the combine. And I'm going to keep saying that because that's my disclaimer for when I'm wrong. Right? I got to have something out there to save me. It's my little safety net. So number 1, and I really don't want to say this because I don't think I agree with it. Actually, let me go to Bucky Brooks first. Let's see what he's got. All right, he's got Dallas Turner as number 1. I do too. He has Latu as number 2. I have Jared Verse. He has Jared Verse as number 3. I have Chop Robinson. Now, Chop, I'm expecting to jump up this board just a little bit. He could move up into the early first round if he has an incredible combine. We've seen it last year. We could see it again this year. Bucky Brooks, number 5. He has Braylon Trice. Did I skip one? So he has Dallas Turner, Latu, Verse, Robinson, Trice. I have Turner, Verse, Robinson, Trice, and Murphy. Gabriel Murphy, UCLA. And then I have Latu, and then I have Chris Braswell. It's hard for me to even put Latu's name down. And it's only because I've seen what's happened with Levi Onwuzurike. I've seen what's happened with Vaitai. And just about anybody else that's ever had a spinal fusion or a spinal injury, me included, 2 of them, 2 fusions, neck and back. I know how it feels. And I know how hard it is, to deal with the day-to-day. So somebody like Latu that had a major neck injury and his own coach said his career was done, so he transferred to a different school to play. I would never draft that kind of an individual. I would stay away from it. I would not want to be responsible for that injury. When studying Demigod, when studying an edge rusher, what are you looking for at the combine besides their tapes? I mean, there's going to be a lot of things. I don't have my list in front of me right now, but I'm looking for the bend. How low can they stay to the ground? The hands, how quick are their hands? The first punch, how heavy are the hands? How quick can they get in and out of turns? How fluid are they on their way to the quarterback? Can they change position quickly without losing balance? Balance is another one. How balanced are they? There's a lot of things that I'm going to look at, but a lot of it resolves around fluidity. How fluid are they within their movements? How low is their pad level? Are they staying underneath the tackle? Are they getting too high, which, obviously gets them into a leverage position that they're going to lose? There's a few other keys that I'm sure I have written down, but those are the main things. Speed, I mean, you got to see speed, but really to me, it's how violent they are at attack. How fluid are they in and out of their moves? Are they going from an outside bull rush to an inside swim or a move? And can they do it, quick enough? And watching their eyes, their eyes always in the backfield, looking for the ball, looking for the quarterback. That's what I'm looking for on tape. Combine's a little bit different. I'm just looking to see how well they move, and it's going to be different in pads too. Your follow-up says, because we have seen a player have an average combine, but the way they play better. Then the player dominates and average at best in the NFL. It's tricky. I didn't really follow what you said there. I think what you're saying is we've seen average players at the combine become studs in the NFL. Is that what you're trying to say? Adisa Isaac El Torre, yes, pretty good, but playing next to Chop Robinson, I thought that Chop was a much better player and could have been the product of Chop. You know what I'm saying? Braylon Allen from Wisconsin. I just picture him as what Kabinda's role should be. Don't know if he will get the handoff or take off like a tight end on a passing route. Who's Braylon Allen? I'm not familiar with that name. Maybe I haven't come across him yet. And have I watched Fraser on tape? 1 inch in arms doesn't matter. I'm telling you, it does. So. And I'm not going to use this, as an attack on Aiden Hutchinson, but one of the biggest reasons why he has trouble with one-on-ones and getting free from a tackle is, number one, he does get held too much, but number two, he can't disengage as easy because his arms are pretty short for a 6'7" guy. And if you don't have the arm length to get long, right, and get long off the tackle, which is another thing that I look for, Demigod, how long are they away from the tackle? How well can they move with one arm, and pivoting themselves on the tackle to get off the tackle? Are they good at setting up the tackle so that they can win their reps? Launch. I mean, there's a lot of different things that I'm looking at, but an inch does matter. It really does. And you'll have a lot of different coaches and analysts and, anybody scouts that all tell you that. The thing that makes up for that inch is everything else they do well. If they have very violent hands, very fast, hands, heavy hands, that can make up for some of it. The goal is, you've got to push that tackle back quickly to get around them. So if you come in with a heavy punch, right, and you're pushing the guy back, well, then you don't need to stay engaged as often. But when you start to engage and your arms aren't as long as his, who's going to win? I mean, it's simple math, right? I mean, if his arms are longer than yours, he's going to be able to get on you. You're not, as a defenseman, you're not going to be able to grab and get a hold of that jersey or up underneath, the shoulder pads An offensive lineman's not supposed to hold. They do. But defensive men, they can do whatever they want. The guys that have the big, long arms, Bruce Irvin, great career. 6'3", 36-inch arms. Myles Garrett, what is he, 6'4", like 36-inch arms. The guys that have big, long arms in this league are the top edge rushers in this league. And Ndamukong Suh is another one. I wonder how long his arms were. Justin Chase says Frazier has to have good and low center of gravity. He's a wrestler, strong hands. Yes, he does. He does have a good background. I'll go back to some of my notes on him, then I'll move back to the defense. So he didn't have any guard experience. He has short arms at 32 inches. I would not take him with my first pick in the first round at 29. Now, he could be a guard, right? A center. He could be a center. He just really couldn't be a guard with short arms like that. Centers, you can get away with 32 and a quarter, 32 and a half inch arms, even 32. Guards, you want to see 33 and up. Tackles, you want to see 34 and 3/4 and up, or 34 and up. I'm just going off the numbers that have been around for a while. This is what a lot of scouts speak to, and it's just something that I've always followed, and that's why I went through and I measured up like all of the top 20 in every position, and I looked at every single one of their measurables, and it made sense. The ones that were the best in their position had the measurables that I'm speaking to. Aaron Donald, the reason why, people will go against the grain and say, well, the measurables don't matter. Look at Aaron Donald. How many Aaron Donalds are there? One. Out of what? 10 years? One. That's the difference. You don't see 10 Aaron Donalds coming into the league every year. You see one coming in every 10 years. And the rest of the guys that do well are the guys that are prototypical size. So just my take. You have your opinion, and it's welcomed and appreciated too. So, all right, let's move on to defense real quick here. My number one pick still for the Lions. And I'm expecting Trevonde Sweat to move up. I really am. And let's get to Bucky Brooks real quick. Defensive tackles. He has Jerzon Newton as number 1, Byron Murphy at number 2, Trevonde Sweat at number 3, Chris Jenkins at number 4, and Darius Robinson at number 5. Now, here's where I like Byron Murphy. But here's where he has a problem. He's guy's a bulldog. He could be that next Aaron Donald. He really could. But hold on a second. I just lost his numbers. 1 second. There's no way this can be right. I hope it's not. But they're trying to say that he has 30 and an 1/8 inch arms. 30 and an 1/8 inch arms. And if that's correct, that's way too short. 8 and 7/8 inch hands. That means my hands are bigger than his. And I don't feel like I have big hands. So Byron Murphy could have some pretty bad measurables this weekend. And I assume that he's going to be at the combine and he's going to go through everything, at least get measured. But we'll see. So if the knock on him already is that he's going to have short arms and smaller hands, he could slide down quite a bit. And I would say that the Lions should probably stay away from him, even though it might be an upgrade, over what, some players we have on the team already. I don't think it's somebody that you want to invest a long, future into. Trevonde Sweat is still my guy at pick 61. Now, if he has an incredible combine, he's going to shoot up the board. And this might come as a surprise to you, but there's a gentleman by the name of Chris Jenkins, who I've been texting one of my Michigan friends throughout the season when I would catch some clips of Chris Jenkins. And I said, man, who is that guy that just ran down that Penn State running back? And it was Chris Jenkins. That's the kind of guy that I think that, the Lions are looking for, is someone that has the hustle that a Chris Jenkins does. Now, I don't know all of his measurables yet, But if he's available at pick 71 or pick 92, I don't think that you can pass on a guy like that. You definitely cannot pass on Trevonde Sweat. I think that Trevonde Sweat could end up being the best defensive tackle in this draft class. And I know you guys are probably thinking you're crazy. What about Jazon Newton? Well, let's talk about Jazon Newton for a second. 6'2", 295. Hails from St. Petersburg, Florida. He is a senior. As of right now, he's being compared to Javon Hargrave. And his overview is this. He's an active interior defender with the potential to build on his disruptive production in college. Newton's size and length does not stand out, but he has shown a consistent ability to gain extension and set the edges against bigger opponents. Newton is clever in setting up blockers and then beating them with sudden and hand usage and foot quickness. As both a run defender and a pass rusher, he's strong enough to hold the point, but he's not going to overwhelm NFL guards with force or power. That concerns me. His skill level and athleticism should create additional playmaking opportunities for him as a 3-down, 3 technique with early starting potential. So 3 tech is what the Lions are probably looking for. This guy could slide down. If Trevonde Sweat has an incredible combine, he could be the number 1 overall guy taken. Not number 1 overall, but the number 1 overall defensive tackle. Let's take a look at Trevonde Sweat here. So Trevonde Sweat, 6'4", 362, big man. That's like another Broderick Martin size. Broderick Martin's huge. Not the greatest athleticism scores, but he does grade out as a good to great, potential for a starter. He's being compared to Vita Vea and Sam Adams. I don't remember Sam Adams. But Sweat is a massive space eater whose size and skill set will have him plugged into a role as a run plugger for odd or even front defenses, which is good. So 3-4 or 4-3. He's not quick off the snap or explosive into his first contact, but it takes a village to try to uproot him and move him out of the way. Now, I didn't see that. I didn't see where he was super slow. He wasn't extremely quick, off the ball, and into the backfield, but I didn't see him being super slow. And I think, a couple of seasons in an NFL, workout program, he's probably going to shed some pounds and firm up and be just fine. You never look at them, from their first season. It's always the second season, where they start to look their best. The attention he will require from blocking schemes should help to unlock playmaking potential of speedy inside linebackers who won't have to contend with as much traffic climbing into the second level. So the other day I made a comment and I said, I think it's very important that the Lions get a defensive tackle. And it's very important that they get a tackle because it's the path to the quarterback is through the interior of the defense. Everyone screams defensive edge, defensive edge, defensive edge, when it's always been the interior defensive line is the path to the quarterback. It always has been. You have to get the interior push to allow everything else to fall in line and kind of work together. Now imagine if you have a Trevonde Sweat who is your big run plugger, right? You've got a Broderick Martin who's also a big run plugger. And then you have an Aleem McNeil who's more of your speedy defensive tackle. And you have your Aiden Hutchinson. Well, if Broderick Martin and Trevonde Sweat were in on the same play and they eat up 3, offensive linemen from center to tackle, well, the whole left side of the defense is going to be able to cave in and get whoever they want to get. And all you have to do is throw a linebacker out on the right side. So there's a lot of opportunity to bring in guys like this that will help to damage and dent that offensive line enough to where your linebacker can fly through the middle, or your defensive end is finally going to be able to be free. He just has to win his one-on-one. That's what this type of a size and skill set will do for the Lions. And I think that's why they brought in Broderick Martin, and they were hoping to get him on the field a lot earlier. It just didn't happen. So hopefully it happens this season, but I hope that they don't settle for Broderick Martin if a guy like Trevante Sweat is staring him in the face. Donovan Amos says, edge rusher from Western Michigan, Marshawn Nealand, met up with Brad Holmes. He is coming to the Detroit Lions. The hometown guys always get a lot of extra attention. And when I watched Nealon, I didn't see a guy that had a ton of muscle on his body. Got to remember, too, it's Western Michigan. So could be a really high character guy, but I just don't see a guy that has that typical body size that I would be looking for. Brad Holmes is a different man. That's why he makes these picks. I'm interested now that you brought Nealon up. Let me, because he's not on my list. He's not even in my top 10. Let me pull him up real quick. So I want to say he was pretty thin. He is 6'3", 275. Pretty thin to me. As an edge rusher, he's got good size. As a tackle, not so much. I mean, he's listed as an edge. But when you look at him, his arms look tiny. Like they don't look built. They look kind of skinny. So, and he doesn't look like he's in the greatest of shape, but man, he was able to do some things on the football field for Western Michigan. I'll tell you what, he was always in the backfield. Can't forget about our CFL guys. No, we got Matthew Betts. Look, I'm expecting Matthew Betts to really have a great opportunity with this team. I really am. And matter of fact, when I get down to, the defensive side of the ball, here's what I've got. Interior defensive line, the Lions in 2023 had 5. Aleem McNeil, Isaiah Buggs, Levi Onwuzurike, Broderick Martin, and Benito Jones. So we've got Aleem, we have Levi, we have Broderick. We're missing 2 big guys, Benito and Isaiah. So that's where I see the Trevante Sweat fitting very well. He's a big guy. Free agent market, I'm expecting that the Lions go out and spend, somewhere between $9 and $13 million on a defensive tackle, or they're going to have to draft somebody in the second round. Starting the season with Aleem and Martin and Onwuzurike is just not enough because we never know if Onwuzurike is actually going to make it through the season. He said, put some respect on Marshawn Nealand. Look, I will when I see him again. I'll watch his play again maybe tomorrow and see if you can change my mind, but I doubt it. Unless you've got some different tape that I haven't seen. And then secondly, on the interior defensive line, I'm expecting them to draft, like I said, second round, and it could be third round. There's going to be some options there, but don't put it past, the Lions to get out of that first rounder, to trade back, to be able to grab a couple of guys in the second round, because that's where I see, the meat of this draft again this season is going to be between 32 and probably 45 for the Lions to be able to get a couple of good picks. And they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to finagle something to be able to get up into that range. Doesn't mean there won't be anything after 45, but I really want to see them take a good shot at getting Trevante Sweat, or somebody of that caliber. I just hope that he has really good, marks as far as, the personal meetings, the attitude, and, all of the other intangibles that they're looking for. So let's talk edge rushers. Last year, the Lions kept 7 on the initial 53. Right now, we have Aiden Hutchinson, and our LDE2 would be Kaminsky. RDE1, right defensive end, is going to be Houston, and Josh Paschal at number 2. And then you got Matthew Betts at number 3. So we got 5. I'm expecting Matthew Betts to probably get, probably about a $4 million APY, in a contract, to probably get about $4 million per year if he does make the squad. Let's hope he stays healthy and does good things this offseason. But here again, the Lions have 2 options. I expect them to draft, and if they're going to draft an edge, they're going to have to do it early because there's just not much available. Let me go back to Bucky Brooks here. So if you're looking for an edge rusher, it's going to have to be, in my opinion, where the Lions are going to have an option, it's going to be Chop Robinson. I think that's where, unless he has a really good combine, I think that Chop is going to land right in that second to third round where the Lions are going to have an option. And again, the reason why I'm doing this exercise tonight and why I'm going through all of this is because at the end of the day, and I'm going to wrap it up here in about 12 minutes, but at the end of the day, we just don't have enough draft picks to do all of this. And that's where I'm baffled at what Brad Holmes said, because we have to go to free agency. Have to. There's no way we have enough picks to be able to bring all of these guys in. Unless you get a bunch of undrafteds, maybe one of them will work, but we'll see. So to get a good edge rusher, I'm looking at Chop Robinson, second, third round. There is the potential that, you could have a Braylon Trice or I'm going to go back to my list. Gabriel Murphy. Gabriel Murphy, you might be able to get in the fourth round, but we just don't have a fourth rounder. So we'll see. We'll see what they do. But we have to do something. We don't have enough depth right now. We need to fill at least two positions to get the Lions back to 7 on the 53. Linebacker. Linebacker's pretty good. Last year we started with 6. Right now we have Anzalone, Campbell, Mabin, Rodriguez, and Barnes. I believe Barnes is not a free agent, is he? I don't think he is. There you go, Amos. Which intangibles does Chop not have? That's what I'm curious. Let's see. Derek Barnes. So Derek is signed through 2024. For some reason, I was thinking he wasn't. So we have 5 out of the 6. So again, what are we going to do? We either have to get a free agent, which according to the contract that we just paid Mabin is going to cost no less than, probably $5 million a year if you're going to get somebody pretty good, or you're going to have to spend, a draft pick, which, again, has to be around the 4th round to get somebody decent and to fill in that second will position that we don't have right now. Now, James Houston is kind of that tweener, right? He can come back and play in that Will or the Sam position. And that means that the Lions would need to go find another edge rusher, but they would bring James Houston down to the front line. That's assuming that James Houston comes back to this team. DT McKinley Jackson would be worth a long look in the 3rd round. And that might be true, but my issue is we're out of 3rd round picks. We've been out of 3rd round picks for a while now. And I'm going to explain that in just a second here. It's crazy how many picks we need. Cornerback. So cornerback, last year we started with 7, and this year we have 2, not including the future contracts. We have 2 guys signed, and that doesn't include Branch either, but let's just throw Branch in there. So we have our CB1 is Sutton, CB2 is Gilmore, and then our DB1 is Branch. Safeties, we had 4 last season. Right now we have 3. Kirby Joseph, and then Melifonwu, and then Brandon Joseph, who's stuck around now for a couple of seasons. So we are missing, out of 11 that we started with, we are missing 5 corners in safeties, which would be 1 safety and 4 corners. Where are we going to find all these guys? Has to be free agency. I mean, we are missing a ton of positions here. And this is just to fill the 53. This isn't even the camp bodies. So at the end of the day, if we were to sign, all the players that I was talking about signing, where we need to sign them, and to really get out of free agency looking pretty good. The Lions would have to spend 21, 26, 32, 41, 47, 51, about $51 million on contracts. Now, you could obviously do something with the first year and the second year of these contracts to make them be a lot more attractive. But it would cost about $51 million to go out and lock up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 7 free agents, in positions that we need and in positions that would be second tier guys, and one first tier guy at cornerback. So that includes a $17 million a year contract to a cornerback. So $51 million to lock up those free agents. And then we would also need 3 second round, 3 third round, 2 fourth round, and 1 fifth round pick, and then a 6th round or 7th round pick for a kicker. So you're looking at 11 draft picks we would need. And currently, I believe we only have 7. So we're a little bit short. And we heard Brad Holmes today. He wants to continue doing what he's been doing, building through the draft, keeping his own guys, re-signing his own guys. And that's why I made the comment earlier today that this could take 5 years. If this is the model that Brad Holmes is going to continue with, and he's not going to go out and spend money in free agency, it's going to take a long time to build your team. And coming, from where we just came from, an NFC title shot, you kind of probably get that itch to spend money. Like, man, I just want to go all in. I want to go buy everything that I can so that I can get our team back there. But it doesn't always work out, does it? You see teams every single year spend oodles of dollars in free agency, and they go lose darn near every single game. Chicago Bears and others. Detroit Lions for 30 plus years. We always spent money in free agency, and we didn't win. Brad is more concerned about knowing these guys. He's more concerned about having relationships with these guys. He does not care about their talent level. He really wants guys that he can bring into his system and turn them into Detroit Lions for life, as long as he can pay them. So, little concerning after listening to the press conferences today. But let's turn our frowns upside down and let's get ready for the combine. And free agency is going to be popping off here in less than 2 weeks. And, pretty close to 2 weeks. It's the 27th. So, yeah, pretty close to 2 weeks. And then it's going to steamroll. It's going to come out hot and heavy for the first 72 hours, and then it'll start to trickle back. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Question, Tracy says, how long did it take him? I assume you're meaning to build the Rams. Man, wasn't he with the Rams for, 20 years, 15 years, something crazy? That was one of the things that I was going to look up today. I don't know if you remember earlier today when I said I wanted to go back and look at all of the drafts that Brad Holmes has done in like the last 5 or 6 years, because all of the free agents that are on the market right now, if they have had any sort of a meeting with Brad Holmes before they, were rookies and signed their first deal, those are the guys that I feel would have an opportunity to become a Lion. Because he has a relationship. He knows who they are. He's gone through the process with them. If they turned out, to be good players, I would feel that those ones have an edge over anybody else. Does that make sense? Oh, he does care about the ability, mile marker. He does. He does care. But what I'm saying is I think he values relationships first. He values the person that he's hiring, not so much, the skill level. I mean, all of that's there, like you said. I mean, you can see all of it. Everybody can see what's on the tape. It's all about the relationship and who you are as an FBI, which is football intelligence. That's what he wants to see. That's who he wants to get to know, is who are you as a football player? What is your football intelligence, and who are you, away from football, and, in the family dynamic or out in the community, and what type of individual are you going to be around my locker room and, in Allen Park. So I think he puts more value on that, because the rest of it, everybody else knows what there is on the tape. The holistic approach. It could be, but whatever it is, it works. It's not going to work as fast as I think some of us are hoping. I'm going to look up one thing and then I'm going to jump off. So Brad Holmes started with the Rams in 2003. And so he spent 18 years with the Rams. Look up his wiki real quick. He started as the St. Louis Rams scout between 2003 and 2012. So he got 9 years in as a scout. And then he was the director of college scouting for 7 seasons prior to getting hired by the Detroit Lions. So he was purely involved in talent acquisition, finding the right guys, and then directing others on how to do that. So from a talent evaluation process, one of the best to do it, probably one of the best general managers to do it, because he can see everything because he's done it. And like he said today, one of his favorite positions is cornerback. He loves the poetry in motion, as he called it. But yeah, we haven't gotten one yet. We haven't found one yet, apparently. So I guess we'll see what happens. CFL is going to play a part in Brad's bag of tricks. I mean, wouldn't that be nuts? If he goes out and finds all of these CFL guys and they come into the NFL and just completely blow it up, you know what I mean? Just have a phenomenal season. That'd be incredible. Well, we need it. We need something to happen. I was really high on this offseason because, we had all this extra money and then it went away. And then we got all this extra money back because the salary cap went up. And then Brad just comes in and crushed all of our balloons by saying that, pretty much he's not hiring anybody in free agency other than his own guys. And then it kind of makes you a little bit concerned about the ability to get back, because there's a lot of players that, although they may not have had a bunch of stats, maybe they didn't play a ton of minutes, they were still very valuable to this team. And you got to remember too, that they practice with each other. So the only way that our starting offense and defense gets better is against really good talent on the other side of the ball. So they had a purpose. They filled a role. The scout team, the look team, whatever you want to call it, the practice squad, they all have a role at making our starters better. So I can't say that it was all for nothing. I can't say that they were worthless players because they didn't have a bunch of stats. No, they served a purpose and they helped this team get to the NFC Championship game. So there's something there. There's a reason why they are on this team. And Brad Holmes will find those guys to fill those spots again this offseason. So, all right. I appreciate y'all. I'm exhausted. This was a long day doing 4 lives I think I did today. And then I'll be back on at 8:30 in the morning. We're doing a pop-up show. I don't know if Derek's making it or not, but pop-up Rise and Grind tomorrow. And then it's off to the combine on Thursday. And we'll have some fun this week, getting to know some, the players a little bit better and getting to see what we see. And of course, we'll bring you guys some information from the combine. So, all right, y'all, go in pride, go Detroit Lions. Appreciate you guys as always. And we'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.